How's part one of the 49ers season looking so far? Because it starts in training camp.
I don't know. I wish we could talk to someone who was there.
It is what it is.
Oh, we got him? Already?
Oh, wish granted.
Let's go. Oh,
wish granted.
I see what
I did there?
You need to relax. This power's going to your head. You posted twice this week, Sammy. Doing a hell of a job filling for Shasky.
He's already laughing and smiling. I think we're off to a good start.
Joining us right now, covers the 49ers for Sports Illustrated. Grant Cohn via the River Islands guest line. Grant, good morning. Let's start here. There's so much to get to injury-wise with the San Francisco 49ers, but I do want to start with the biggest story nationally and obviously locally was the car accident with Kyle Shanahan. Just take me through, him calling the reporters back. You had the first tweet about this whole thing a few days ago when, he had all the 49ers, reporters get into the room with him. He set the record straight. Hey, it was my fault and all of that. Just can you take the audience and us through what that was like?
Well, I had found the night before on like a public police database that according to the police, the other driver was a 21-year-old girl, and she was at fault for swerving into his lane, and I reported it. And the next morning, he was like, Grant, we need to talk. And I didn't know why. I thought he was going to be upset, but he brought me and all the other beat writers in, and he was not angry or defensive. He was distraught. And he was explaining, first of all, he's severely concussed, so that explains a lot of the emotion, but he was like crying. And so he did like an hour with us. The first half hour was off the record just because he couldn't stop crying. And it was like right off the bat, he's like, look, Grant, all the details in your story were wrong. And it's not your fault. It was the police's fault. I hit her. And he starts going on this like confession where he's crying. And it was the most human moment I've ever experienced covering a football team. And then when he was done, he did it again on the record, more composed, which was took a huge effort for someone who's concussed. And when it was all over, I was just sitting there like, man, this guy needs a hug. Like he's got guilt. He has PTSD. He has a concussion. So as soon as he was done, I just stood up and walked right over to him. He could tell what I wanted to do. So he like kind of braced for one of those man hugs where you put the hand out front. But I like brought him in for the real thing. You know what I mean? Like an emotional, I love you, man type of hug. And then every other beat writer gave him a hug as well. It was very unprecedented.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about that. I mean, I heard about the hug there. And because, I mean, obviously it's no secret. You and Kyle have gone to battle at times in that auditorium, professionally speaking, of course. But yeah, I heard that that had to be, I guess you mentioned, just such a powerful moment, seeing Kyle in such a human form like that. It's just something we just don't see from head coaches in his position. It isn't so much a question. When I heard about that and then hearing your story there, it really just kind of captures the gravity of this whole situation here.
Yeah. When I'm like, taking shots at him in a press conference, I think of him as like Kyle, the head coach, who's kind of invincible. But in this moment, privately in his office, this was like, this is Kyle, the man who I've never met, and he's being so vulnerable with us. And I'm grateful that he would trust us to even see that. Because clearly he doesn't want to do a press conference right now. He doesn't even want to address his team right now because he can't talk for extended periods of time without crying.
I mean, it's after going through all this, Grant, again, you've been around him so much over the last few years. I mean, do you have kind of a different perception of him now, not just as a coach, but as a person after these last few days? Or I guess, how has that perception changed maybe that you have had of him over the last few days, if at all?
Yeah, I always looked at him as like maybe a little arrogant, maybe a little shallow, maybe things were handed to him. A lot of things people could say about me. And I had just realized, a couple of days ago, well, I've never met the human version of Kyle Shanahan. I've met his wife. I've talked to him at the owners' meetings, but like this was real and this was unguarded and it was something I've never experienced. So it just showed me, hey, sometimes you can be around someone for a decade and not know them at all.
No, it's a great point. And Grant Cohn joining us here on the River Islands guest line, covers the 49ers for Sports Illustrated, detailing, the aftermath of Kyle Shanahan, bringing in reporters and clarifying who was to blame for the accident. And he went Akon, you could put the blame on me. That's basically what Kyle Shanahan did. But now let's get to the on the field portion. Like, they're clearly missing this guy. I mean, everyone wants their head coach to be a part of training camp. Like, what is the factor here for the 49ers going forward? Obviously, Chris Foerster is kind of the interim there. Do they miss him? Take us through how this thing has gone without Kyle Shanahan, because you're there every single day down in Santa Clara, Grant.
I don't think they miss him yet. Like, he's been there for 10 years. A lot of the assistants have been there for 10 years. It's like a well-oiled machine. That being said, they need him when the season starts. He may not be the best coach in the league. I mean, I've argued that he's not, but I think you could argue he's the most powerful coach in the league. I think everything in this organization goes through him, from coaching to personnel to negotiating contracts. Like, he's involved in everything. And if you take him out, I wonder if they have a leader, if they have direction. They also lost Robert Saleh. One of the things Kyle was explaining in this behind closed doors meeting was just how this concussion's affecting him. And he's like, I have a tough time deciding what to eat for lunch. Like, that decision is as hard as any decision I'm making throughout the day. And I don't understand why. He can't listen to two people talking to him at once right now. That's too much. Just sensory overload from the littlest things. Like, he does best when he closes his eyes when he talks. He talks very slowly. This could be completely different in 2 weeks. But that's not Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan during a game is on the headset, listening to 8 people talk to him, making 8 different decisions immediately. I don't know when he's going to be that guy again. And it's kind of scary to think about what this team looks like without that version of Kyle.
Well, it's a great point, not to cut you off, Sam, but like the incredible stress that you're under physically, you're walking down, like your body's tensing up, but you have all these different voices. To your point, Grant, it's just something we don't take into account enough, and obviously we think of the football players first and foremost in concussion protocol. And it's just like, all right, when are these guys going to get back on the field? You don't think about the human element with this thing. Because I think of fantasy football first and foremost. Oh, I have a guy on concussion protocol. Is he going to come back? And it's kind of heartless. It sounds heartless with what we do. And I do appreciate you kind of humanizing these situations, and specifically with the head coach, because you think of a concussion for a coach, it's just not like, oh, well, he'll be back. No. You're detailing every single thing that this guy has to be doing at any given moment, especially in training camp, especially in that heat in Santa Clara too.
And you got to factor in, like, you think, well, Kyle played football in high school and in college. Surely he's had a concussion before. He told us he hasn't. He told us he's never had a concussion before. So this is new for him. It's scary for him. And there's no frame of reference for how long it's going to take for him to recover. And he kept saying, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And when he would do this, it would do it every like 5 or 6 minutes. And it was like, hey, he's not really talking to us right now. He's talking to himself. And some of those things are the scariest things of all, because it's like, he has no idea. He's probably trapped in this headache for 2 weeks. And part of you thinks, is it ever going to go away? And you keep telling yourself, yes, the doctor says it will. The doctor says it will, but it hasn't yet. It's a scary. And he was like, it's not a linear progression. Some days I feel better. Some days I feel worse. What happens if, week 3, one of the days that isn't so good is a Sunday? What do the Niners do? Well, they do have Clay Kubiak. They do have Raheem Morris. They do have some really good coaches, but I think we can all agree that with the Niners in the substation, no matter who gets hurt, you could feel confident that they could make the playoffs because they have Kyle. And we saw it last year. You lose Brock, that's okay. You lose Bosa, you lose Warner, it's okay. What if you lose Kyle? I don't know that any team's really built to handle that.
Yeah, I mean, losing your head coach in any situation is tough. When you call him I love that term you use. He's the most powerful coach in the NFL. And I do love how he's really instilled the system here going into his 10th season here that I think it was, Kyle Juszczyk, I think it was day 1 of training camp. It was just like, we got this. We've been doing this for such a long time. But yeah, to your point, it's imagining this team without Kyle. And, and at some point over these last 9 years, every Niner fan has fired Kyle Shanahan at some point during this run. But now you're kind of seeing, what that would look like. And I feel like it's kind of, it creates a greater appreciation, I think, for what Kyle has meant to this Niners team, past, present, and future going forward. And so, Grant, I guess this leads me to my next question in terms of just, I guess he's just observing practice. He's not participating. He's just out on the sideline observing. And then I think John Lynch said they're just putting him in the standard concussion protocol there. I mean, is that how he goes through the protocol? Is that any different than a player would do it since he's a coach? Or just what do you know about how the Niners are approaching Kyle Shanahan in concussion protocol here?
He explained it. He's like, that used to be a player gets a concussion, they go in a dark room, put a towel over their head and come out when they feel better. But like, that's not the science anymore. They look at the brain as a muscle that's been injured. And so Kyle has to work out and build strength in that muscle. So what he does, he'll watch a little bit of film in a day. And there's a pain scale of 0 to 6. And he starts off at a 2. I think his baseline's at about a 2 right now, all the time. And watching film, any type of concentration will make the pain go up. but the doctors say it's good. Like, you want the pain to go up. You need to take it to a 4. And then when it gets to a 4, then you cool it. And some days he can go more until he gets to a 4. Some days it's discouraging. It's less. It's how it goes. So that's where he's at right now. Like, he can watch a little bit of film. He can go out for 45 minutes and watch practice. But, there's that really loud music that they play at practice. Well, it's way quieter for him because he can't. He says it's killing me. The music is killing. Like, all these things are sensory overload. And if he follows the doctor's protocol, eventually he should get better, but it's going to be a grueling road.
Gonna be honest, Grant. I thought it would be one of those things before talking to you about this entire process. I thought it was gonna be one of those things. All right, well, he's got a concussion now. Like, it'll clear up in a little bit. He'll be fine. Yeah, exactly. Right. You think about that. But then you start.
That's what he said. He's like, as a coach, anytime they said, "Oh, a player has a concussion," I'm thinking, "Oh, he'll miss one game." Now he said, "I don't understand how they put their helmet back on. I don't get it." And it's like, this is a 47-year-old NFL head coach sort of realizing what his sport entails. It was very interesting.
No, that's a fascinating aspect in regards to just. I don't want to get on a serious note, but this is a whole serious conversation, like the CTE conversation with all these guys coming back, all the different concussions, the head trauma, like it's a serious thing.
Alden Smith, Brandon Aiyuk. Mental health has been sort of hanging over this league and this team all year. And now now it's approaching the head coach because of an accident. And what's going to happen?
No, it's a fascinating conversation, and we haven't even gotten to the on the field portion of this so far. And let's get into it because obviously the biggest breaking news the last 24 hours, Ricky Pearsall, starting his 3rd season with the 49ers. And this is a guy that's missed time in training camp for a variety of different reasons, right? But injuries is the most common theme throughout all of them. I remember we had, his head coach when he was at Arizona State, Herman Edwards, on. He said on our airwaves, this is a guy you have to protect from himself. This is heading into his rookie season, Grant, that Ricky likes to do too much sometimes, and you have to protect him from himself. Well, we're seeing now that maybe that it was him, maybe it was the 49ers. I don't know. They tried to protect Ricky last year by not opting for surgery on the PCL. Seems like in hindsight, maybe that wasn't the best move because this is a thing that's flared up again now, and I don't see it going away.
I just want to point something out. Look, first of all, my heart goes out to Ricky. He's a nice guy, and this sucks. This could potentially jeopardize his career, but I just want to point out, Ricky followed the 49ers protocol to a T. He did everything they wanted him to do. He rehabbed at the facility. He didn't have the surgery. And where did that get him? Meanwhile, Brandon Aiyuk, known jerk, didn't rehab with the team. And they punished him for it, still are punishing for it. But seems like he's healthier than Ricky right now. And if somehow the Niners could pull a magic trick and repair the relationship with Brandon and get him on the field happy tomorrow, boy, they'd be so much better, but that's never going to happen. I just think that's kind of interesting. Like, the relationship fell apart ultimately because he didn't trust your training staff. He shouldn't. Your training staff is awful. And all they did this offseason was add hydrotherapy and add some low-level people to the department. Like, no, you need to overhaul the whole thing and get a new trainer. I'm sorry. I don't know anything about Dustin Perry, but the results aren't there. And now you didn't even get to August and Ricky Pearsall's hurt. Nah, man. I don't say you owe Brandon Aiyuk an apology. He owes you an apology, but you guys need to kiss and make up because you need each other.
I almost think it's more of an indictment on their ability to rehab players in their training facilities, Grant. You bring up the new things they added. I read they spent $9 million on upgrades to the training facility. On top of, doing the study to say that stupid substation isn't doing anything. And I refuse to even entertain that theory, Grant. I just think it's absolute lunacy that we get into a point that we're pointing at that thing and saying that it's zapping players. I mean, Romello Height, his first day of practice gets cramps. So what, 24 hours of exposure, that's all it takes? Like,
hey, maybe I got zapped.
There we go.
My back's been a little sore. I don't know.
I mean, that's why this is such an electric interview right now. But
oh my gosh.
I guess I was just getting into
Jesus.
These upgrades, what tangible benefit are we going to see from them? Or is just year after year, or we just keep playing the same game of just your crappy training staff just can't get these players healthy? I mean, what you said right there about Ricky following the Niners plan to a T, and he's unhealthy. Brandon Aiyuk is doing his own thing, and somehow he's the guy who's in the right health-wise. That just kind of blows my mind.
I mean, we know Nick Bosa rehabs on his own. And no one gives him any crap about it because he's a pro's pro. But there's a reason he does that. It's not just because he likes Fort Lauderdale that much. It's because this training staff has terrible results when it comes to bringing people back from injury. They bring people back too quickly. They don't have surgery when they should. I mean, they couldn't have botched this any worse with Ricky Pearsall. I feel for him because he wants to be the good guy. He's not trying to be Brandon Aiyuk. He's not trying to go against the organization. He's trying to be the anti-Brandon Aiyuk. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it with a smile, and it could cost him his career.
Well, and they're now a potential, and again, I don't want to put this out into the atmosphere, but you have to talk about it. They're a potential Mike Evans injury away. Again, a guy that didn't play a lot last year, the most games he hasn't played in his entire career. If he gets hurt, you're looking at a starting wide receiver group, Grant, of Stribling, Demarcus Robinson, and Jordan Watkins. So, which leads me to my next question. There's a guy named Deebo Samuel that's out there, Grant. I mean, should they kick the tires? Will they kick the tires on this guy?
I have a feeling they're ultimately going to sign him, but I think they feel they don't need him at training camp. Like the reps need to go to Dejon Stribling and Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins, and then they'll see what they do in training camp. And they can always sign Deebo week 1. They could sign him week 2 and give him a non-guaranteed deal. He already has chemistry with the quarterback and knowledge of the system. That's when they signed Kendrick Bourne last year. They signed him week 2. I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners do the same thing with Deebo. And again, like if they sign him, are they going to win the Super Bowl? Like that's not the difference. If they got Brandon Aiyuk back and he would be happy, that could be the difference. But bringing back Deebo, sure, he might get you 700 yards, but he hasn't been elite in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Grant, I want to talk about another guy who we hopefully will see on the field, and that is George Kittle. And he has maintained all offseason that he expects to be on the field, even for week 1. He said he's obviously going to be out there, but it's not 100% certain, which I feel like those statements kind of contradict each other. Just what do you know about the latest with him and just how, because I'm skeptical that he'll be on the field week 1. If he gets on the field at all this year, I consider that a win. But just what are you kind of hearing, seeing, feeling in terms of Kittle's status right now?
I mean, I've seen him out there. I haven't seen him run. He said that it was a cleaner tear, like higher up on the tendon, which is supposed to take longer to rehab. He has Neil Elitrosh as his surgeon, who is like under investigation in the UFC and MLB for being too good at bringing back people quickly.
Oh, of course.
Conor McGregor, people like, he's also the Rams team doctor. He's universally regarded as the best, almost too good. So I wouldn't bet against him. I just feel like what's George Kittle going to be like at 33 coming off a torn Achilles? Also, look at Dre Greenlaw, who's like 3 years younger than George Kittle. It took him 2 years to be healthy after tearing his Achilles, and George Kittle is just that much better than him. Maybe, but I think you definitely should temper your expectations. Anything Kittle gives the Niners this year should be looked at as gravy. And if he gives them a lot, then that just adds to his Hall of Fame, legacy.
What depth should Niner fans be more concerned with right now? Is it the skill position players on offense, or is it their defensive line depth from an injury standpoint?
That's a great question. Do you know, here's who's starting on their defensive line right now.
Oh, boy.
They got Bosa, but he's not in team drills because he's on a pitch count. They have Osa Digizua. They have CJ West at nose tackle. At D tackle, it should be Alfred Collins or Michael Williams, but they're both out. No idea when Alfred Collins is coming back. So it's Sebastian Valdez right now, and then Romello Height. So really nice if Alfred Collins would come back, but he had shoulder surgery, missed they didn't have minicamp. All of training camp so far, haven't seen him at all. He's really important. It doesn't seem like they're going to trade for Vita Vea because he wants $40 million a year. But yeah, maybe D-line.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That's again, so it's wow, D-line. That's not.
Well, that was the bug.
They don't have depth on the D-line.
Yeah, they don't have depth.
They're hemorrhaging at the skill position players, and they don't have their head coach. Is this team going to make the playoffs this year? Every year,
is this team going to make the regular season right now with the way things are going? I want to try to talk about something a little bit positive here. Brock Purdy.
Okay.
How's Brock been looking? How's his connection with Mike Evans been looking? Because obviously that's going to be such a big part of this upcoming season there. Just Brock getting those reps with Mike Evans. How's that looking with those two right now?
It's been 3 days. Brock looks great. Brock's a really good quarterback. He had a really nice throw to Mike Evans yesterday, deep down the left sideline. Evans was open over the shoulder, hit him in stride. Evans dropped it. And he was so upset with himself. He's made that catch thousands of times in his life. So I wouldn't worry about the chemistry between them. They'll figure it out, and they'll play well together as long as Mike Evans is healthy. Brock's having a good camp. Well, it's tough for him because no one's really open. He could check it down to Christian McCaffrey all day, but he's trying to get the ball down the field. His first read usually is covered. He's doing a lot of like breaking the pocket, extending plays, and he's still 14 of 18 yesterday. He's done 1 pick in 3 practices. He might be having his best camp so far as the 49ers quarterback, but like, what does he have to work with? Really? I mean, they had one of the worst run games in the league last year, and the running back's older. Kalen Black looks good, but Jordan James is hurt. Your wide receivers are hurt. Your tight end is hurt. He's the whole offense right now.
Another guy that's not hurt, thankfully, but he's dealt with injuries the last couple seasons, and specifically last year in Denver, is Dre Greenlaw. Is he looking like the Dre Greenlaw from, prior to the Achilles? How's he looking out there, Grant? Because if they could just get a semblance of what he was, and I know what he means is kind of that bully on defense, that mentality he brings. They've clearly been missing that the last couple of years. And I know Fred's probably happy he's back.
I don't want to jinx it because it's been 3 days and it's not August yet. But like, knock on wood, he looks great. He looks like Dre Greenlaw. He looks healthy. He doesn't seem to be on a pitch count. He's out there every day. Nick Bosa isn't out there every day. Dre Greenlaw's out there every day. First play of 11 on 11s yesterday. He got in the backfield. He stripped the ball from Christian McCaffrey. He recovered the ball. He picked it up. He scored. Freaking Dre Greenlaw. You saw what he did in 2024 for that one half that he played against the Rams. He was the best player on the defense, and he was the reason the Niners were in that game. So if he could stay healthy, it looks like he's finally made the full recovery. I don't know if he can stay healthy, but right now he's looking great. And I think he's had a better camp so far than Mike Evans. He's the new addition who's had the biggest impact so far. And it'd be nice. I think the Niners need to put Greenlaw and Evans on a pitch count. Like they're just too important. Now that Pearsall's hurt, you can't afford for Evans to be hurt as well. You got to be careful.
I mean, if Evans isn't open or on the field for any reason, I feel like a lot of eyes then turn to Dejon Stripling. How's he been looking here in his first few days of training camp?
He's getting a lot of action. He's playing with the first team, the second team, the third team. And I think he's exactly as advertised. The speed is real. The size is real. He's fearless over the middle. If you throw him that dig over the middle and it's high, he can jump really high. He has big hands. He can catch that. He's done that multiple times. Is he Brandon Aiyuk or Ricky Pearsall as a route runner? Absolutely not. Like, if you want him to run a slant, you probably need to have him in like some type of a bunch formation or someone to like create a pick to get him open. Just like with Deebo. He's not much of a route runner, but he's really fast. He seems strong with the ball in his hands. He looks like he could be a really good number 2 receiver, and he looks durable. So I think stock up, but I don't see necessarily like, Justin Jefferson or Brandon Aiyuk.